Hello and welcome to this first tutorial on using App Inventor. App Inventor is a web-based application, so the first thing we've got to do is open up our web browser. I'm using Google Chrome, but any web browser will be fine. To access App Inventor, we need to first sign in with a Google account. So I'm going to do this just now. I have my password and username already saved. And go to the App Inventor URL. I've got mine bookmarked already. It's different to the one you'll be using, but you just type in the URL that you're using. And straight away we're taken to App Inventor's projects page. This is a list of all the mobile apps that we've developed so far. As you can see, we're just getting started, so we haven't got any apps yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new app. App Inventor asks me for a name for the project. It's very important that you don't include spaces or start with a digit. So I'm just going to call mine VirtualPet, all one word, but with a capital P to make it easier to read as two words. It creates the project, and straight away I'm taken to App Inventor's Component Designer. There are four main parts to App Inventor's Component Designer screen. On the left, we have the palette of all the components. These are the things that make up your application. We're talking about buttons, text boxes, and so on. So we have a number of basic components, those to do with media, to do with animation, and so on. In the middle of the screen we have a viewer. This is where we place all the components to make up our mobile app, and it gives us a rough idea of how our app's going to look. But to view your app properly, to see exactly what it's going to look like when you run it on a phone, you'd need to connect a phone for live testing, or view it on App Inventor's built-in emulator. And we'll see both of those later. Moving over, we have the Components panel, and this lists all the components in our app and allows us to rename or delete them. And at the bottom, we can add different kinds of media, sound, graphics that our app's going to use. On the right-hand side, we have the Properties panel, and that allows us to change all the properties or settings for each component in our mobile app. So the first stage in creating our mobile app is to assemble and set the properties for our screen components. So I'm going to start off with the screen itself. I'm going to leave the background colour at white. I'll leave it without a background image. I am going to set an icon for my mobile app so I can recognise it on my phone. And I'm going to choose the picture of the cat here. And it's going to take just a moment to upload picture of the cat to App Inventor, and there we are. The icon is cat.png. The screen orientation I'll fix in portrait mode. I'll uncheck scrollable because it's not going to scroll up and down, but I'm going to change also the title of the screen to Virtual Pet, and you can put your own name here. It's important to understand that this is just a caption on the screen, and this is nothing to do with the project name that we saved earlier. And you can see it updates there. I'm now going to assemble the other components in my application. First of all, a button. There's quite a lot of settings here. Don't worry too much about them. I'm going to make sure it's enabled so it actually works. Leave it at the default background colour. I'm not going to worry about any of the text features for this button because it's not going to contain text. And the image I'm going to set to the cat. You can see text for button 1 appearing in the middle of the picture there, so I'm going to delete that. And leave the width and height of the button at automatic, and that means it will be made just big enough to accommodate the picture and no more. I'm going to include a label to display some text on the screen. I'm going to make that bold. I'm going to make the font size quite big, 36 point, and I'll say "Touch Me" as the caption. Lastly, I'm going to add a sound component. So I'm going to go into Media and drag over the sound. I drag it on top of my mobile phone screen, but it immediately appears below there because it's not a visible component. I'm going to set the source of the sound to meow. And I'm going to leave the minimum interval at 500 milliseconds. That's half a second. That's how long the sound's going to last. And that's us. But before I go on, I'm going to make sure that all my components have sensible names so I can recognize them easily. So button 1 would be better called button pet. Label instruction, because it's an instruction to the user, and sound 1 should be sound pet. So a button for the pet, a label with an instruction, and a sound for the pet. And that's us assembled and set all the properties for our components. Now at this point it's really important to realize that your app doesn't do anything. It has all these components on the screen, but if you click on the cat, nothing will happen because we haven't given it any instructions. So what we're going to do now is open the blocks editor and give our app some program code or instructions. Join us in the next video to find out how to do that.